Welcome back, everybody, to WCS Premier League Round of 32. Happy Valentine's Day once again to anybody, and we want to wish everybody a great day here of StarCraft II action. We have our next match coming up. It's Liquid Snute versus AT uThermal. Now, this one is a battle between two European players, one from the Netherlands and one from Norway. And this one is extremely exciting because everyone has high expectations of Snute coming in from last year as one of the best players, if not the best player, that was in Korean. And coming in this year, how will he fare now that the regions, well, they've been locked a little bit more hard? So we're about to find out, and I believe once again, Nathanius and Rotterdam are ready to take it away.
Thank you very much, Dan. We are very excited for this upcoming series as well, and I know this man on my right is extremely pumped. Nate, I've heard that you've been slaughtering Zergs for months now on ladder, so you're going to tell us all about what is going to happen in the series, isn't it?
You know, I'm not supposed to actually let people know that, like, you know, I'm doing really, you know, Terran's side doing really well versus Zerg, but the thing I'm most interested in looking forward to this match is what maps we get, because a little birdie told me that a little Terran player doesn't like overgrowth, just like me. I'm hoping we get to see some of these other new maps. But yeah, Terran versus Zerg is a very fun matchup if you're a Terran lately. At least I like to play TvZ quite a bit. But Snute, he plays his own game. You know, when you boot up StarCraft and Snute's on the loading screen on the other side, no. You know you're not signing up for whatever it was you were originally expecting when you hit find map. No,
you definitely have not signed up for that. Snute is something else. He's just been getting better and better and better at this game. Every year you kind of felt like, yeah, no, maybe this is the peak, but on a certain point he's like, nah, this guy ain't gonna stop, Nate. He's just going to get better. He's been here multiple times already in the studio for uThermal on the other end. It's the very first time he has made it to the United States of America, so big journey for him. But he seems pretty relaxed. I was talking with him a little bit in Dutch. That's so special for me. I got a smile on my face when I can actually talk Dutch with someone over here. He seems pretty relaxed. He wasn't super confident, I felt, but you know, at least I think he's going to be able to show his best, and that's definitely what he's going to need going up against this handsome devil from Norway representing Team Liquid.
Yeah, Snute, I mean, there's not a whole lot that needs to be said about the man. He finished 17th overall in WCS points last year. He was so close to being the only non-Korean player to actually get to BlizzCon, or at least to participate in the opening weekend ceremonies. But uThermal, this has been a guy I've actually been following for quite some time, since he first got in Challenger. I was like watching his stream, like, congratulations, man, let's get you like featured on Team Liquid. It's like, I feel like you're going to be the next big thing. And you know, then it was like, okay, it's like you made it into Premier, didn't quite have the crazy deep runs, but here he is, he's still going at it, still kicking it, and I'm excited to see an upset of sorts, because I know a lot of people expect Snute to win, and maybe a lot of Snute fans out there will dislike me for saying this, but I got to cheer on my Terran brother today.
uThermal is definitely one of these Terrans that, if you are familiar in the European pro scene, or even if you're just like a high-level European player, he has been considered one of the best Terrans in Europe for quite a while. Like, he doesn't get all the spotlights because, of course, you have Bunny and stuff. You know, Bunny is going through all the tournaments, and Moro.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, to Moro, of course, as well, a real pro gamer. No, but uThermal, you know, if you are high on the European ladder and you've played against this guy, you know that he's been pretty damn good for a while, and it's just a matter of time before he will have that absolute breakthrough performance. Even though, you know, making it into Premier League 3 times, I think that's, you know, that's like almost a breakthrough. It's sort of a breakthrough. It's just like not that memorable run yet that people will talk about for years. Of course, Snute, on the other end, he's had plenty of those runs. I love how you said how you felt like you heard about uThermal for the first time. You're like, oh man, I'm gonna follow this guy. I had a funny, similar experience. I was streaming a while ago, and I was like, uThermal's starting to stream as well. This is quite a few months ago. I was like, cool, you know what? You know what I'm going to do, Nate? I'm going to host uThermal. I didn't know him that well, but I knew he was Dutch, and I knew he's a very good Terran player, and he didn't have too many viewers. I was like, cool, I'm going to host uThermal. So I was like, /host uThermal. Thanks everyone for watching my stream. So I tune over to uThermal, and like literally the first thing I see is a bunch of Banelings rolling in his base. He hits his keyboard and quits the stream. I was like, well, best host 2014, you know? That was awesome. But since then, I've been following him a little bit more. He used to be, you know, a little bit on the raging side. I think he's definitely calmed down now. We all get older. He's still very young, of course. Yeah. Only 19. I think it's going to be an awesome series. I'm very pumped with it. Definitely not a series that you and I normally cast. That's something that Kalaris and Apollo would be much more familiar with, casting these two.
I'm happy to take this one off their hands, Kev, because I think it's going to be an awesome best of 3. And we do have the maps as well. We'll be starting off on Expedition Lost. Then we'll be moving on to Catalina. And the series, if it goes to a Game 3, will end on Deadwing. I'm always surprised when I see you not vetoing Catalina, but I guess some of these other maps are so good for Terran. You're okay with playing on that one at that point.
Now, you can talk to me about Expedition Lost already, Ned, because I know you've been talking to me a lot about it, but that's when I drive and you sit next to me playing Pokemon on your 3DS. But talk to the people as well. What are your feelings about Expedition Lost, being a Terran player going up against Zerg on this map?
Versus Snute, I actually don't have too many qualms with this for uThermal. If I was up against someone like Slivko, I'd be really, really scared that a bunch of roaches were going to smash down the rocks and come kill me. But in this, for a series like this, I think it's totally fine. Talking about key features of Expedition Lost, we can go a bit deeper when the game starts, but your third base is a little bit far away. If Snute opens aggressively with Zerglings, or it just has Zerglings actively on the map, it shouldn't be too difficult for him to put pressure on uThermal, but at the same time, if uThermal has good Hellion control to start of the game, he'll have a similar number of opportunities.
You saw them, like, you see them typing and then you see them smiling a little bit. These two guys have definitely been having fun with each other. You know, like we said earlier as well, Snute with the funny tweet saying that he should be ready for the Norwegian cheese. That's really funny. I was watching backstage Snute warming up a little bit. He likes to play Osu, the music game, to get your mouse accuracy up. And after that he started playing Leather. And he actually played... he played against a pretty well-known Protoss, but he thought it was the girlfriend of the Protoss playing rather than the actual Protoss. And then he opened the stream. He's like, "Oh, it was the real one. I didn't think it was." I was like, "Well, Snute, you also had the entire map covered in creep at the 16-minute mark. Like, what is the poor guy supposed to do?" He's like, He's like, "I don't know. I didn't feel I played that well." I was like, "Well, Snute, I think everything will be fine for you today."
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what he busts out, because Expedition Lost, I can see a little bit how you could make Snute's, patented swarm host TM style work. I don't think it'll work at all on Catalina. The map's way too open. So that also comes into my curiosity as to how that map made it into the 3. But then on Deadwing, it can be pretty good. But this is overall a pretty fair set of maps. Although I would definitely give an edge to uThermal on Catalina. So Snute certainly wants to pick this one up. If he had to pick a map to lose, it would not be this one.
Yep. We might have a minor pause over here, as uThermal is not 100% sure about the Ineos that he's currently using. So of course we want to make sure that everything is good to go before we do start up this matchup. This allows us to talk to all of you fine folks at home that are watching us on Valentine's Day, hopefully in company of your loved ones, and if not, well, then make it with a nice bag of chips or a drink, whatever it is, Nate. Hashtag WCS on the Twitter universe. Let us know how you're enjoying the show so far. Let us know who you're cheering for. We're getting a couple of funny tweets already here and there, Nate.
Yeah.
Somebody said, like, I've mispronounced Gouda my entire life. I just opened someone's eyes, Nate.
Yeah, well, it's okay. It's okay. The Americans still okay to just call it Gouda cheese. It's okay, guys. But no, that's a good point. I actually wonder. Some people probably had really sick plans today. It's like a wonderful romantic Valentine's Day. You, me, candles, and WCS.
No, if that doesn't get it, that should get you the dream day that you've always been waiting for. It's like, hey, do you have any Valentine's Day play dance?
It's like, I don't want to take you out to a movie. Let's just go. I got a nice 42-inch plasma. Let's watch WCS together.
Well, you make fun of it, but that could be lovely.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me, man. I don't know about you.
I take it, Nate. If I wasn't here with you right now, I'd be watching it with you at home.
Yeah, that's probably true, to be totally honest.
All right, we are ready. Sorry for that minor pause, guys, but we are good to go for our second series of the day. WCS Premier League will continue, and it is going to be the first TvZ of the season. And over here on the right top side of the map, we have my fellow Dutchman. It is uThermal.
He's at a pretty steady rise up in the European scene. His opponent, who had a couple of really big matches, big results last year, almost made it to BlizzCon from Team Liquid. Give it up for Snute.
Snute, of course, had a pretty smooth run through the qualifiers and through Challenger as well. Was able to win his Challenger match 3-0 over the French Protoss Psionic. uThermal, on the other hand, was able to defeat Bly, our Ukrainian Zerg player, 3-1. But of course, Bly is a special Zerg, and
you can't compare the way that you play versus Bly versus almost any other Zerg out there.
No, not just that, but definitely not Bly and Snute. If you talk about polar opposites, it's pretty much as far as we go within the Zerg universe. So we'll see. uThermal is probably going to have 1 or 2 crazy builds planned, because he's always been the type of Protoss that has something, or type of Terran, excuse me, that has something crazy planned. I remember he played, I think, a Challenger series against Letut once, uThermal. I know he's watching, and I think he did some crazy marine attack as well on habitation station and stuff, and uThermal was able to defend and advance to Premier League.
Already this game taking a pretty interesting start. We have the very fast, we have the 2v2 build coming out of Snute, the ye old 14-14, very fast Zergling speed build. And most of the time, if you're facing this on ladder, you're up against some cheesy guy who's going to build a baneling nest afterwards. Snute
I would be that guy, Nate.
Yeah, well, Snute might be anticipating that uThermal would go for a 2-Rax on this map, since it can be very awkward to play in general once you're on the 3-base setup. So an early aggression kind of makes sense, but uThermal is playing this totally straight up. He's opened up with a Reaper, and as soon as he's SCV sees, hey, you don't have a natural expansion, bruh. Well, he's just going to wall off, and there shouldn't be any worry about having a natural expansion canceled. You can just build it in his main and float it over later.
Is this one of these moments where uThermal will think back about the tweet that Snute sent out and be like, cheese, huh?
It's like, oh, cheese? Like, you won't cheese me. You're not a cheesy player. And then it's like Snute actually cheeses him. He's like, well, I'm kind of glad I didn't ignore that.
Snute did stop mining gas right after he gathered 100 gas, so he only mined enough gas for Zergling speed, and after that he just sent everything back to the mineral line, so he will most likely still follow this up with a head shoe, and everything will be standard, but his economy is a little bit weaker than it normally is, but of course he'll have much quicker access to speed, so this Reaper should not really be able to achieve anything.
Yeah, I really like this, though, for uThermal, because he very smartly just builds the second supply depot, so he can open up with a second Reaper, which he can't clean up all the lings because speed will allow them to outmaneuver him. But because he's taking his second hatchery so late, both players are saturated on one base, essentially. And with the Mule, that actually gives uThermal a little bit of extra cash. So until this natural is done for Snute, he's got another 40 or so seconds on it, and he can start to put drones there. There's really not a whole lot he can do.
The Reaper does die, but uThermal had to verify, had to make 100% sure that he was not mining more gas, that there was no baneling nest or roach warren.
In many circumstances, it's really important not to lose the Reaper, but to confirm that there was no follow-up aggression whatsoever was worth losing it in that instance.
Yep, few Zerglings are streaming across the map. Speed is ready, so the second Reaper has to be very careful. Will actually be caught out in the open. This Reaper is probably going to hop around a little bit. Will it survive? Maybe for now. I guess actually it will be fine. Snute doesn't want to chase it around forever. He does still have these Zerglings working on the rocks though, and uThermal has still not identified his name. And this is one of these silly things that we all know about this, but this is going to happen to you 3 or 4 times.
You always think about it, you're like, oh, he's just going to break down the rocks and come from behind. He's like, well, you know what, that's so predictable that it would never happen. But now these Marines come over, and this is generally enough because the Marines can hit the lings from the high ground, and
no, that's all he needs.
Very important, because that can go bad very quickly if he just doesn't notice.
And I know that's something that's should be inexcusable if you are a pro player, but it is going to happen once or twice in these maps that people just don't think about those rocks. It's been a while since we had rocks entering our main base, so it's a very easy thing to forget about, because when is the last time you had to worry about this in the ladder?
uThermal, his Reaper ran in. Now the Reaper actually can't escape out of the back of this main. It can only jump. It can only go down the main ramp, basically. This is not a Reaper-friendly map as far as scouting the main base goes. So he'll try to slip around. He did already spot the Roach Warren, which is the most important thing, I think, to see here, because you have to worry now about those back rocks being broken down from afar, and then you have to build basically a bunch of bunkers at both your natural and your main if you want to stay alive versus an all-in.
And the second Reaper didn't really achieve a whole lot. Like you said, it's all the Roach one, but that's pretty much the only thing that it was able to get done over here. Meanwhile, the starport is already done for uThermal. He has a Widow Mine in the mix as well, Nate. We're watching your ladder sessions over here.
Well, hopefully a little bit more successful than my ladder sessions. He's going to drop the mine with 4 Marines. And this is actually really tricky.
On the rocks, by the way.
One thing that is important to note, that Reaper did see that there were none of the additional extractors were taken for Snute, so you could build a lot of roaches off one extractor, but it's just going to be pure lings behind this. And I'm feeling more and more like he wants to put on some level of pressure, but he has drones building for the third anyway.
He's on 41 drones right now against the 32 SCVs of uThermal.
Very late lair for Snute.
uThermal is still not aware that these rocks are being attacked. Of course, it takes a long time for Zerglings to break it down, but it's something I am generally worried about for him, because if those rocks will go down, then it's going to go from bad to worse. If this Widowmine is able to burrow in a nice position, this Spore Claw is not ready yet. I guess Snute is going to be fine.
Oh, I like this. Okay,
I like the on-barrel.
Doing some micro. He does not want it to be baited on a single drone. Will he target fire? Gets two. Not bad. The Marines focus on one of these queens, but the transfuse is good. Gets the medevac. Hellions running the natural at the same time, though. And now he's starting to get some cash money for this Hellion investment.
Yeah, this actually seems more than reasonable for a Dutch turn uThermal over here. It gets more than a handful of drones, and when it's all said and done, we have 38 SCVs against 34 drones. Now 5 more drones have been added, but 16 workers went down there, Nate.
This is an absolutely fantastic position for uThermal. Despite how late his third command center is, there's no lair, no evolution chambers, and now there's Banshees on the map. With the Hellions, these Lings should never do anything. With the Banshees and now the wall finishing up, and the soon-to-be most likely stim started up, he could go mech out of this position, but I think he could end the game faster if he were to work off of this lead by going for bio. So we'll have to see what he does from this position, but uThermal does not have anything to worry about because threats like Mutalisks are so far away, he just needs to hold his front wall.
Yep, and I mean, of course, it's always nice to still look for openings with these Hellions or for a Banshee. Every drone kill you can get is going to put him in an even better position. Now, this is still Snute, and I will never count Snute out, especially not because we know, the magical things that he can do with Zerg, and I'm totally agreeing with you. I don't really know where he's going to take this, especially because his tech is just so underdeveloped.
At some point, he has to use how low hit points these rocks are and just try to... I feel like that's really his biggest chance, is that there's no bunkers on the map. So he needs to make his ground forces really do something for him here.
Yeah,
because the Banshees and the Hellions are... Yeah, they're going to keep putting the pressure on the front. But I don't think there's any way for... there's no... Yeah, I guess I'm just as confused as you as far as what Snute can do.
Exactly. These Banshees will definitely keep the Roaches at bay. You don't want to stream Roaches across the map while 2 Banshees are already hovering above your army.
His lair has just started, too. He can only build Roaches and Lings, which aren't going to... That's not going to break him at this point. He doesn't even have a Baneling nest.
He is up. Yeah, he's back up to 65 drones, though. Of course, it's still going to take a while before that layer is done. Zergling's going to try to be annoying at the ramp, but you have double eBay running for uThermal. His production is soon really going to kick in as more Rexes are about to complete and being added on to add-ons. uThermal should be able to find a really sweet position to find in roughly 90 to 120 seconds from now.
Yeah, I'm still... the biggest thing that makes me curious about this is the way that Snute opened up with such few gas and such high production. I really get the impression that he was expecting uThermal to either do that 2 racks or to follow it up with some sort of much heavier 2-base aggression. But now uThermal's got this map control. He should be able to use the Banshees to also deny creep. 3 Banshees is a tremendous amount of damage output.
Yep, that is not the amount that you want to send 1 queen at. This 1 queen will be caught out of position and gets picked off immediately. Second queen gets a little bit ahead of the party as well. I think uThermal can get queen number 2 as well. And he might be able to get queen number 3. No, he's not going to get queen number 3, but still gets 2 out of 3 queens there.
It'd be a pretty big folly for Snute to lose any more queens. Transfuse is good, but man, those queens...
Excellent control so far.
Yeah,
uThermal's doing it really well, putting them in a sweet spot, making it very, very annoying for Snute to deal with this, especially because his Spire is so ridiculously late.
Yeah, biggest problem right now for uThermal actually though is these Hellions run back. They should get surrounded and picked off as the Banshees are finally cleaned up by these queens. Snute actually got his 4th base up, and I think if those Banshees are able to run in and deny the 4th, killing the queens was nice, but he still gets the 4th, and now that the Spire is coming out, putting on aggression with Hellions and Banshees is completely gone. uThermal did not plant the 3rd base that he's had done for a little while during this time period. So now it gets a bit tricky because I feel like the Mutalisk should be able to put on a good amount of pressure.
But he doesn't know.
As he moves to take the 3rd.
I mean, he doesn't know about that 4th base yet. He's just never scouted it in the right bottom side.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like not being able to capitalize on the ability to deny it.
I definitely think indeed soon is the moment where uThermal will just start being aggressive. He has slightly more army supply right now than Snute has. Of course, Snute is going to start his Mutalisk soon. Snute starts his 2-2 upgrades, by the way, before he gets Mutalisk, Nate. So that's going to slow the Mutalisk production down even a little further. I really think that in a straight-up fight, uThermal's army should be a lot stronger.
Yeah, his army is better, especially considering that Baneling speed isn't done. In fact, there are no Banelings on the map, so this push, for all intents and purposes, this should kill this 4th base, because without Baneling speed off creep, there's not much he can do. But he still hasn't started any Banelings yet.
Nope. He has 49 Zerglings, so he has plenty of Zerglings to morph. He starts 7 Mutalisks now. While seeing this army, first scan is going to go down. Couple of 2-mores.
20 Banelings starting up, but if those tanks get into a good position, man, that's kind of what they do. They kill the Banelings. And he's pre-spreading these Marines out in a little bit of a line behind his army, which is also really smart.
A couple of Banelings going to try to get in from the side. That's really cool. Snute, of course, doesn't want to engage before Baneling speed is ready. Spore Crawler gets picked off. That's not the end of the world. Banelings should start rolling in real soon from the right side, but these tanks are the scary part of this push.
Yeah, the tanks are on the right side getting ready. These Banelings try to come in for the flank. Most of them do get picked off. The Marines spreading reasonably well. Now the combined forces of Snute are able to push this back, though.
He actually hold that pretty easily.
Yeah, he didn't have too much trouble with that. Even losing all those Banelings on the right side of the tanks, he still held off very well. Yeah, 12 of those Banelings just straight up died.
And now suddenly, Snute is taking a pretty massive army supply advantage. These tanks were not siege yet, so they're not super useful. And we'll do a lot of friendly fire over here as well. 2-2 upgrades are almost ready for uThermal. That's going to give him a little bit of breathing room, at least for a bit, as 2-2 Marines should do very well against these 1-1 Zerglings and Banelings. But they will only be 1-1 for a while, because we mentioned these upgrades from Snute started before uThermal started pushing.
Yeah, so the 2-2 is finishing up for uThermal as he pushes in. The +1 Mutalisk attack is done. Now, if you can hit that attack with 2-2 before the Zerg has it, that's nice, but Snute's is very, very close to completing. It really seems like this game, Snute just, even though his tech was so late, he just hunkered down on that high drone count that you mentioned and told himself as long as he didn't take any further damage, he should be okay. I'm pretty impressed with how well he's recovered from the way that this began. These Banelings, though, morphing, getting picked off. He only needs a few to finish, though.
Yeah, and he does get a couple to finish. He's going to be able to pick up that tank as well, but still is going to retreat for now. He has a few more Banelings morphing behind this. Snute is just ridiculous macro behind this man, even when he is in a tricky position. He's back up to 80 workers now. He's mining off fort bases. The creep threat, you know, is not out of control, but that's mostly all credit to uThermal for
he
being...
can get all of his units to his 4th base, which is what matters most.
And uThermal has been throwing down a couple of scans as well, picking up those tumors. And on the left side, there has just not really been a whole lot of action on the left side of this map. I think Snute could potentially do something cool with these rocks.
Yeah, he's had them at very low health throughout most of this game, and he does break down the center one, so he's basically saying, yeah, now you can't run over to defend your main base. So Snute using both sets of rocks to open up an attack window.
There's a lot of Marines over here, but there are also quite a few Banelings in the mix.
Yeah, these choke points the Marines are hiding between the barracks is quite nice, but if you lose those barracks, then you don't have any way to follow up for a counterattack. Now, he did kill off all the Banelings, so he has to retreat with the Mutalisks. He got, what, just the Starport's reactor, nothing...
Yeah, a few Marines and indeed the reactor on the starport. I mean, if uThermal gets that fort base, which he definitely needs.
uThermal hasn't started his +3 upgrades yet, and the infestation pit is on the way. So Snute is actually going to be slowly getting into a position where he shouldn't be able to fall behind on upgrades, at least not an extreme amount. Now, uThermal, on this map, I can see with all these choke points and these ramps and how small the map is, why the tanks are good. But they haven't really had a big impact on it yet for him. He doesn't have a lot of tanks. I like that he's moving into Thor production, though.
Bunch of Mutalisks all the way on the other side of the map. Will fly into a bunker and a turret. uThermal's not even going to try to repair his turret. I guess, you know, +2 Mutalisks are pretty intimidating. Actually, they only have +1. These Banelings getting very close to a couple of these Marines, getting some good connections. I just feel uThermal right now is not ready, and I feel that Snute is just making sure that he just doesn't get ready until Snute truly wants to fight as well.
Yeah, he shut down the mining at the 3rd base. Now, the 4th base was taken, but at this point, all of Snute's reinforcements will be focused on pushing this back. He's cleaned up a fair amount of the Banelings with this army, but there's 18 more, and surely Snute's just getting ready to go for another surround on this army. As long as there's some creep here, there's a way to make it happen for Snute.
Yeah, the Mutalisks are not even participating in this battle, but Snute is still going to go for it. Most of the Banelings rolling in. Some good splits by uThermal will actually survive with the majority of his Marines, but like I said, Snute took that battle without his Mutalisk, so the next fight should go a little better for him, and he did destroy that entire 3rd base of uThermal.
Yeah, that wasn't...
wow, the reinforcements have arrived though, man. That's a pretty intimidating Marine army.
He shut down the 4th base mining for Snute. Snute pulled all of the drones away from there, and even some of them dying trying to escape. There's not really any Banelings with this army. There's just one under the Mutalisks, a few morphing. Okay, now some coming from the natural. Most of them detonating on a Marauder. There's a lot of Marines here to fight for uThermal, and not a lot of Banelings for Snute. Even pulling his drones to try to hold off against this attack, and he will be able to clean it up. And with that, and that 3rd base that you mentioned earlier being sniped, uThermal, he's been crippled, man.
I love how there is a siege tank left behind over here as well. He's like, hope they won't come for me. Guys, team. Legacy of the Void upgrade now, please pick me up. You know. As GG is called, and Snute will win the first map on Expedition Lost. A very interesting back and forth game where things didn't look super beautiful at first for Snute, but he was able to hang in there, defended very well against a couple of pushes, showed some nice patience as well with his Banelings, and I think the moment that the Mutalisks were able to pick off that orbital command on the left up side, I think from that point it really went from bad to worse for uThermal.
Yeah, and uThermal, just the way that, you know, You can see him showing a little bit of stress from that game, as this was that push he tried to make earlier on, where he really tried to get his first attack in after stemming all the medevacs were out.
Look at all these queens,
defense,
by the way.
Yeah, a sick amount of queens just to soak up damage while the banelings finished up, and that was the key factor. Even as we see most of them got blown up on the right side, he still gets in, even without them, and kills most of the army that came up into that third.
And there's few additional Zerglings, making it really hard for the tanks to shoot at the things they were actually supposed to shoot at, rather than at each other.
Yep. Definitely made things a bit tricky. I feel, uThermal knows that he had a really good position, and I think in that game, something that's very important to note, the Banshee follow-up may have been uThermal's way of dealing with a potential Roach all-in.
No, I think he's just making sure that the Roaches stayed at home.
Yeah, because after he killed all of those drones and did that mine drop, I think uThermal was in a fantastic position to get a faster third command center and double engineering bay. And maybe that's why I thought he was as ahead as he was. But he went into Banshees because he wasn't sure if Roaches were coming. Because if he does the 3 CCs, then it comes down to, do I have enough bunkers? Can I even get enough bio out in time? And that, it makes it very tricky for defending. So I can understand why he did what he did. But
I think he made a very
enough of his lead that it allowed Snute to get back into the game.
But I think he made a very good point as well. Like, the Banshees picking off 2 or 3 queens, that was pretty damn awesome, but it would have been much more awesome to just kill that fort base in the right bottom side of the map. Because the moment that follow-up push didn't really get done what it was supposed to get done, the fight we just saw one more time. Snute was on 4 bases, and if Snute would have only been on 3 bases there...
Then I think it's much more doable.
Yeah, it's still a completely different game. Pretty damn cool first game, though, between these 2 excellent European players that have run into each other multiple times over the last few months. The score is in favor of Snute, but uThermal has won a series and has definitely won a couple of maps as well. I think the overall map score is 6-4 in favor of Snute, and now it's 7-4, Nate.
Not bad. Not bad. I think as a favorite, it's certainly expected. But we're loading into map number 2. Definitely have to give the edge on this map to our Terran player in the north position of Catalina. He is uThermal.
And over here on 9 o'clock off Catalina, we have the man himself representing Liquid. It is, of course, Snute. What I love about Snute as well is how he got so much more calm. I mean, he's always been a calm guy, but in the past, whenever he went to events, he was often like quite quiet in the mornings, you know, just kind of doing his own thing and just sitting behind his PC. And nowadays, I feel we see such a relaxed version of Snute, you know. He walks up to us, he's just joking around, he's playing his games, talking about things not related to StarCraft at all. You can truly see that he's really getting used to this lifestyle, and he's obviously loving it. And I don't know.
It's good to be able to disconnect yourself a little bit. You know, you want to keep your focus for when you're actually in the match, and I think that is just a big contributor to the massive amounts of success that he's had in StarCraft II.
A lot of the very successful players have always been, you know, very relaxed outside of the game as well.
Being good at switching off a little bit.
Having that on and off switch. Thinking of Bomber, for instance, as well.
So now we get to see where Snute's build holds an advantage. uThermal going for 2 barracks Reaper play, and you know, this was, if any Zerg players out there, if you watched, if you saw Maru versus Life, you know that basically this has been every single ZVT you've played in the last couple weeks, and Zergs have adjusted their builds accordingly. I tell you what, Kev, I can't remember the last time I actually played a TvZ and the guy went hatch first because they are that scared of Reapers. But Snute did it on the last map. On this map, the fast speed will clear this out easily. The Queen should prevent any drones from being picked off. So the economic investment that uThermal made into this game is enough that I wouldn't go like on Expedition Lost. uThermal was ahead based on the way that the openings went. But in this map, it should be even closer to favoring Snute unless the Reaper can do something crazy like slow down the natural being placed.
Yeah, it was the opening and the follow-up even on Expedition Lost, but in this case it's unlikely that either of those 2 things is going to happen, but we will see. First Reaper is going to make his way across the map and is going to find this relatively late hatchery, and that is not what you want to see when you open up with 2 Rexes and a bunch of Reapers. You're like, oh, alright, I would have preferred to see you go gasless and, I don't know, hope for roaches. That would have been a beautiful world if you're uThermal.
Yeah, without gas, holding off builds like this is very, very difficult, as Queens alone can be really messed with Reapers. So uThermal, like I was mentioning, he could try to make a play on this natural if he could slow down the placement of this. It could buy him a lot of time because the Zerglings are going to funnel through this choke point, and eventually you might even see a second bunker later on. He's trying to force these queens off creep 2, which makes it much more difficult to micro against the Reapers.
But this is going to be a very big investment now for uThermal. Like,
Yes.
2 Rexes, of course, is always an investment, but now I feel it's a massive investment. He doesn't have any high ground vision anymore. As long as his bunker doesn't go up, I'm afraid that he's not going to be in a good position at all. He's going to end up losing his SCV. This bunker will
now
not finish.
Speed's done, so we can, like I said, this build, this is not like your standard go-to build, even though Snute's done it 2 games in a row. I feel like he's chosen this because he expects these types of plays from uThermal. And maybe the last
a couple
game
of
was more
Reapers
of a
are going to get
surprise.
picked off as well. I think at least 1, maybe 2. No, just 1. Still well done there by Snute getting 1 of them. And uThermal, he's going to be stuck in his main base for a while, Nate. You really can't take too much of a risk with these Reapers.
No.
Of course, you know, hopping off cliffs up and down, and, you know, picking off a couple Zerglings, that is very nice. But he doesn't know what else is out there. If there are 20 more Zerglings on the map and he loses these Reapers as well,
Then
he
it's
loses
over.
literally everything that he has.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And at the same time, Snute could just pump out a crazy number of drones, maybe think about...
If I
I don't
was
think he needs
Snute,
to think about third base just yet, but he could.
if I was Snute, Nate, I would throw down like 1 more big rotation of drones and then nothing but Zerglings and start mining gas and throw down a bailing nest.
I've lost games to that, Kev.
Yes.
I'm glad you think like my latter opponents do, killing me with big counterattacks.
Okay.
So there are a couple of ways that you can follow this up with. You either have to dial down the aggression or double or go all in again or double down on it, I guess is the best way to put it. And if uThermal, since he did finish up a couple of extra Reapers after this, he still plans to get some damage on. He wasn't expecting Snute to make a ridiculous number of lings. Now the Queens are still going to be able to do, a reasonable bit to defend, but this Reaper count is nothing to joke about.
No.
This isn't just your Bronze League heroes thing going on here. uThermal's got some mad skills when it comes to at least controlling them.
Yep, 7 Reapers is indeed pretty damn intimidating. His scan goes down. I love how Snute tries to
He's got
move.
a posse of queens up there.
Yeah, I
man.
love how he tries to move a couple of queens out of position. He's like, if I were you, I'd totally jump up here, man. There's really nothing that you have to worry about. It's just slow Zergling or a couple of sweet things. But obviously, uThermal's like, whoops, well, that's a few more queens than I have anticipated on.
Yeah.
There are 2 roaches on the way, Nate. How do we feel about these 2 roaches?
uThermal's going into Banshees, it looks like.
I feel like it's going to be more than just 2 roaches. I feel like it's going to be a lot of roaches. It's not going to be
He
Banings.
could still play it out the same way he did the last game. Just make enough roaches that he can move his lings out onto the map. I'm not 100%
I think this is a few more roaches than just making a few defensive roaches, though. Don't you think so? He also made so many queens.
He's going up to about 8. Okay, he's teetering on the point. If he adds any more, yeah, with only 33 drones.
Loses one of his overlords there. Still squeezing out a few drones. He's trying to go up to 3 hatcheries now as well. Of course, the creep spread is going to be absolutely ridiculous with the amount of queens that Snute has produced early on in this game. It's going to be gross, Nate. I do like his overlord spread. These Reapers have completely missed the roaches, but that could go 2 ways.
Yeah. So interesting things to
I
note.
actually don't think these roaches will be able to achieve a whole lot, unless there's going to be a crazy follow-up. But
And the Banshee's not ready yet, so if these roaches are able to help catch some of these Reapers, like Reapers can actually, like with the range that they have and the way that they can just dodge the roach attacks by running away with their extra speed against the short range of the roaches, they can work with it.
I still think this is fine though for uThermal. Like Snute is not going all out with this. He's making a few speed links behind this, but he doesn't have a baneling nest. He has a bunch of marines. Like this is frustrating for uThermal to deal with, but he should be able to clean it up. Of course, as long as the economy from Snute on the other side of the map doesn't spiral out of control, I think uThermal should be okay-ish over here.
Yeah, the roaches are going to get pushed back now. Yeah, the Banshee helps to cement that early hold here, and I actually like that he used the Tech-Leptic barracks rather than just rushing straight for Stim to get that Marauder out. And he has his 3 command centers, so he has everything that he needs in a standard Terran versus Zerg setup. The Reapers are still roaming around the map, and there were not enough lings to even clean them up, so most of Snute's Zergling forces were taken down. And
Gets a couple of free tumors with these Reapers. That's nice, man. This is very funny. This
it's a
Reaper
sick hit squad, man.
Yeah, it is. If these Reapers swing by this hatchery, he should be able to get a couple of drones very easy. There's nothing to protect these drones over here. Well, there are a few Zerglings that were perhaps baiting them all along.
Yeah,
Maybe
well,
Snute is just that good, Nate.
The Reapers do not have a ton of utility past the Hellion phase of the game, and it looks like we're skipping the Hellion phase, Roddy. So what he got for the Reapers was, probably
6.
a little bit more than he was bargaining for. Not bad.
Few creep tumors and 6 drones. I didn't feel like he got 6 drones over there, though, by the way. I felt like it was less than that, but maybe the Reapers just kill things that quickly, Nate.
It's like, of course you'd love to get more, but it's still reasonable. And actually, by skipping the Hellion phase and going into Bio faster, against what Snute is doing, which looks to be a 1-1 Roach follow-up, this is actually pretty damn good because while these Banshees continue to put the pressure, things that he's going to be looking for, if he can see these eggs pop, is what's coming out of them, and that, of course, is going to be the Roaches. So, with Roach speed now on the way.
He's trying very hard to make sure that Snute doesn't get silly creep threat this game, but with this amount of queens, I feel like it's just a matter of time.
I think he's actually still. I think he's still doing a really
yeah, he's
great
doing
job.
a really good job, but I still feel, Nate, as you like to say, or as a lot of people like to say, he's sweeping leaves on a windy day. Because they'll come back, Nate, and there's going to be a lot of them.
But that many queens, I guess it's inevitable, but he's bringing them all up into the main, really trying to deal with them with these bad boys. Not having to worry about Mutalisks makes these Banshees feel so comfortable. But like I said, I still really like that the fact that he didn't stop to build any Hellions allows him to have so much more bile than you would normally have when a Zerg does. And Snute actually canceled his +1 Roach attack. He's going into he's going back into Zerglings.
uThermal is doing he's very persistent on killing all these tumors. At the same time, Snute is going to knock on the front door, but there should be plenty of bio to deal with these Roaches for now, especially because there is a Banshee on top of it as well. There are some Zerglings streaming in to complicate things a little bit. SCVs are being pulled. uThermal should not die over here, but he's taking quite a bit of economic damage actually, more than I thought he would.
The rest of the Banshees show up. He did actually finish his +1 attack. It was just started earlier than the Carapace, and he defends. Normally these Roach 1-1 little shoves they're a lot more followed up in terms of reinforcements.
Well, this game is definitely going to be very aggressive and explosive with the position that uThermal just decided to take his third base. Like, he could have taken it on the right side and taken much more defensive, but he's like, nope, I'm expanding towards the Zerg.
He could try to put a bit of pressure on because the Baneling Nest isn't even halfway done yet.
And he's been doing such a phenomenal job in denying these creep tumors from spreading that actually makes it a lot more doable for him as well. Again, he has the 3 Banshees though, by the way.
To be fair, I will say the only creep spread that Snute really has is in front of where that third base is, which is nice. Yeah. But moving towards the fourth base, which is usually more critical, that'll definitely be nice. And the fact that there's no Mutalisks, Kev, These Banshees, free roam. If the Queens try to target the Banshees now, the Marines are just going to Shrek them.
Few Zerglings going to try to run in as well, make this a little bit more complicated, and at least forcing uThermal to pick up these units for now. But the supply is indeed very, very close, and that's often a very good sign for the Terran, especially if that supply from the Zerg is not, in 46 Banelings or something like that. This is actually going surprisingly well for a Dutch Terran. It's a kind of a bizarre game. How is it all played out? But now looking at it,
it's been a bizarre series. Now, uThermal is going to be playing with Widow Mines this game. Very important difference compared to tanks. They're a bit more difficult to clean up for the Zergs, of course. You need to have those Overseers, and then the Widow Mines, generally speaking, are much more cost-effective than Siege tanks in this matchup.
Snute just adding a little bit of everything. He has the Spire almost finishing up, but he also has 4 Swarmos on the way, and Enduring Locust being researched as well. One of these Banshees gets picked off immediately. That Widow Mine did more friendly damage, I felt, than it killed Zerglings. This has actually been a surprisingly good engagement for Snute. I feel that uThermal lost way more than Snute did over here. Oh my god, that second Widow Mine as well. What is wrong with these Widow Mines, Nate? Traitors!
I didn't realize that Snute could build Widow Mines. It's pretty impressive.
I really want to give a shout out to Snute's Widow Mine control. Excellent.
Well, it'll be in my nightmares tonight, Rodney. That's all I know. So 2-2 is going to be finishing up reasonably soon. Snute, by the way, he has Enduring Locusts coming in, so Swarm Hosts are on the menu, boys. But they have not been built just yet. And Baneling Speed's finishing up.
He has 4 of them.
But does he?
Yeah, he already made 4 of them before.
Oh my. Where is he putting them this early in the game?
I think
he hasn't actually used them yet.
No, they're just sitting there. It's like, I mean, I think actually...
I think they're tricky to use on this map, but...
Well, but the bases are so close to each other that it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. I guess it really comes down to what the Mutalisks can do to stop drop play. Or if uThermal's even going to try. He hasn't moved any of his medevacs recently towards any of those drop paths. That Widow Mine got something.
Yeah, a few Zerglings here and there. But Snute baiting the second mine, not losing more than 2 links for a Widow Mine. Obviously a good trade for him. How many baitings are we looking at right now? Only 10. Oh, uThermal has the majority of his army in the medevacs, by the way. That's a very awkward way to start your battle. 2 Widow Mines could get massive shots, but no, Snute takes care of them with his banelings. I did not like that engagement for uThermal at all. Most of his Marines were still in the medevacs.
Yeah, his 2-2 finishes up as this fight hits, but +2 Carapace has actually been done for quite some time for Snute. The only thing he doesn't have is the +2 melee, but with an overwhelming number of forces, it may not be that big of a deal. Baneling, only 1. So, yeah, uThermal should be able to hold this for now, but the 4th base is up for Snute. Importantly, Snute last game had his 4th base at the same time that uThermal was trying to take his 3rd. So I still think uThermal's in a better position than he was on Expedition Lost.
He's starting 3-3 now as well. That's something he never did on Expedition Lost. And he has that Fort Command Center floating over, like you mentioned. But Snute is also mining off Fort bases now.
He really floated out his factory. He's like, no more Widow Mines. These things are killing my units more than they're killing yours. I don't want you, factory. Get out of here. Get lost.
It's a solid scout. Meanwhile, we have the 4...
It's become the TVP. We've come full circle.
With these 4 Swarmos being annoying, picking up a couple of supply depots, this makes it even more annoying that now Zerglings can just run by all the time and potentially do terrible things to this mineral line. Or just a few Banelings here and there. Doesn't need to be a whole wave of Zerglings. Just 2 or 3 Banelings can already be detrimental for that entire mineral line.
Yeah. It's really interesting that he, you know, there's a difference between not using your factory and floating it to the other guy's base. Snute knows he doesn't need as many Zerglings as Banelings now. You just build a ton of Banelings, and there's not really a whole lot the Terran can do. There's nothing he has to deal with the siege here of Snute with all of these swarm hosts, and he has to take this fight, but the only thing he has against the Banelings is his Marine splits, which, you know, they're decent so far, but with the backup forces coming in for Snute, he shouldn't be able to just break him with mass
There are
Marines.
additional Marines screaming in as well. uThermal actually really made the best of this. Excellent splitting there, excellent focus fire as well, but he's still down 50 supply, and he actually just lost a bunch of Marines too, or a bunch of
his third
SCVs.
base is pretty much gone.
Yeah, these Locusts, man. You don't really need a whole lot of Swarmos to be very annoying with them. Picking up the Orbital as well, so this is pretty much all or nothing right now for uThermal, and he knows that it's going to be nothing. Snute wins his first series of the day, 2-0 as well. Definitely had to work for it, Nate. It wasn't it wasn't smooth sailing all along, but
a bit more scrappy than I think most people probably anticipated going into this. Snute choosing to go for, you could say, the aggressive but also very safe openings. Both games seemed a bit more aggressive in Game 1, and of course Game 2 he was really able to use it to hold those Reapers away. And
but also still showing us how solid he is, that even when he's being put in a relatively uncomfortable these Widow Mines. These Widow Mines were just deadly for uThermal.
I don't know why they show up as uThermal's color on the mini-map, because they're certainly not working for him.
Look at that. This killed like 7 Marines in that one shot. But yeah, Snute really displaying us that even when you put him in an uncomfortable position, he still makes the best of it. I really like this Queen use throughout the entire series. He made a lot of them. Definitely, like, especially because uThermal made like 3 Banshees. So imagine if he only has like very few Queens to work with, and then he ends up losing 2 of them against those Banshees. Then suddenly it becomes a lot more tricky for Snute to actually produce a whole lot of units. But he always had like 5 or 6, and they helped buying times as well against the pushers when he needed a few extra seconds for Banelings and stuff. So I definitely think Queens, real MVP, and the Widow Mines.
Yeah, especially considering that when the creep gets cleaned up, when you have that many Queens rebuilding it, as long as you've dealt with the Terran threat, building the rest of that is pretty easy.
And even if you lose those tumors over and over again, at least you force the Terran to scan over and over again for it. So it's not like it's for free for Terran to just keep killing those tumors.
And in a really weird way, it was also super useful against the Banshees. Like, sometimes when you're playing like Terran versus Zerg, you don't expect to fight versus 8 Queens and the Zerglings and Banelings. So you bring your Banshees from the start of your game, and you're like, well, okay, unless he has mutas, these should be okay. But you have 8 Queens there. Banshees are totally eliminated from the equation. You can't use them to snipe Banelings, for example, or even just zone away Zerglings from flanking you. So just overall, very well played by Snute, despite any cuts he made at the start of the game to stay safe.
Yep. Pretty cool series so far. This means that our winners match is going to be a ZvZ between Shigwa and Snute, and our lower bracket match is going to be between uThermal and Australia. So we have a PvT and a ZvZ coming up for you. I've been enjoying the game so far, and I'm curious to see if Dan has been enjoying it as well, who's on the couch with the one and only Wunderwunsch.
That's right. Thank you so much, Robert and Nathaniel. I'm joined on the couch by TLO, the Team Liquid member, as well as with Snute. TLO, what do you think of that series? I guess you're pretty proud of your teammate there, huh?
Well, game 1 I was a little bit worried because he got pretty far behind in the first game, but Snute overall just playing his very solid style, always doing his chores, doesn't get distracted by any harassment, suppresses creep very well, and his mechanics look very solid. So I think it looked like a very typical Snute series, just a very clean game.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I think the cast has summarized it pretty well with the overall analysis. So I want to talk a little bit more to TLO and see how you're doing. You're here in California. You're here for WCS. Usually you're over in Europe. How is it over being here in California in the middle of winter? It's not like it over in Germany and Berlin, is it?
Well, to be honest, I'm a little bit grateful because I'm getting a little bit of sunlight. In Berlin, winter is basically 3 months of just gray sky and no sunlight whatsoever. So I'm getting a little bit of vitamin D here, filling up on that and not being depressed anymore. So I'm using any minute I can get to go get some sunlight.
Vitamin D is good for you. This just in by TLO. I want to get your thoughts on how the new WCS system is for you now that you've seen all these kinds of announcements and how it's going to take place. What do you think about being able to play against players from China and Latin America? You know, you have Kel'Thuzor in your group, a player that I don't think many players have even gotten experience against him. You know, how has your approach changed differently for this year around?
To be honest, I don't really care at all because it doesn't change anything for me. I'm going to practice, I'm going to be prepared, try to play as well as I can. You know, it's not like my results may change, you know, might be easier. So I'm just going to take that, but I'm not going to think about it any different.
Fair enough, fair enough. And then what about some of the announcements recently been made for, you know, the Legacy of the Void tweaks that they've been doing? For example, Blizzard was thinking about taking out the Herc and then, you know, trying to test a little bit with combat speed, 40%, you know, a little bit slower, but, you know, adjust damage. Do you have any thoughts on some of the recent patches at all?
Well, I mean, everything is still going to change, so I'm not trying to get caught up too much in the hype. I'm happy that they are willing to try out a lot of changes and are willing to really change core mechanics and how the overall game works, because I think right now StarCraft II could be improved quite a lot. And so far, it looks like they're taking the right approach, in my opinion.
Well, I'm absolutely certain that fans would be really excited to see what you could bring for Legacy of the Void TLO, especially with some of those cool things that will be coming for each race. The last question I want to bring in, it's topical. Today is February 14th. It's Valentine's Day, TLO. Is there something that you want to say special to some of your fans in commemoration of the holiday?
You know, always good to spread the love to anyone, not just your significant others. Just be nice to people and think of people.
All right, well, that's very heartfelt indeed. Thank you so much, TLO, for stopping by, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
In the meantime, guys, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with more StarCraft II action. Make sure to join us in the conversation. Let us know. Send us your romantic lines to TLO or whatever by hashtagging WCS. And, of course, we want to give a big shout-out to Gigabyte and BenQ for doing an awesome job supporting us to making sure this is all possible. When we come back, more action here at the WCS Premier League Season 1.